Welcome back. We're finally out of phase one and into step two. And step two, I call state the symptoms, but what I've really been teaching people is, look, you just got to say what you see. Too many times we make assumptions about things and it just usually gets us in trouble. So our idea is to capture the right problem statement. We're going to use the key tools of just the attitude of only saying what I can see. We'll write that on a C4 card, and then at the end of this, we'll have a list of observed problems. Here's what we're trying to sort out again. Still in that top corner of understanding the current situation and knowing what's going on with the problem. So we're still asking and answering the questions on the left, and in the box where the right arrow is pointing downward, that's where we're going to list all these different problems that we see. And then we're going to pick one of those, we're going to break it down, and it goes in the box next to it. The value stream map is also very effective for this, so I'm going to take all of those angry clouds, and those are going to be the listed problems, those observed problems that I see, whether I'm just seeing it here by analyzing the map or whether I've gone out to the Gemba and actually seen it. But it's very important for us to actually say what we see, because we don't want to make assumptions that will lead us down the wrong path. And it's easy for us to do. I'll show you some examples. Another good bit of guidance, and I posted on this earlier, try to avoid using negatives. Now this, I gotta tell you, this is extremely difficult. Even, I mean, for me, I struggle with it every time I'm talking to somebody. Sometimes it's really hard to find a way to say, well, there's none of that. But it's important for us to pay attention to that, because that puts us in a mindset for a particular countermeasure. If you say that I want this countermeasure and I don't see it, your thinking is going to just find ways to put that in place. So another thing that you're going to hear from me is standardized work is never a problem, it is never a cause, and it's never a solution. So you can't just use the term standardized work. And the same applies to training. You can't just say no training, or too much training, or too little training, or lack of training. What we really want to get to is what's really specifically missing. Here's a couple of examples. These are actual C4 cards that I've picked up. So they said, hey, there's a trip hazard in the workplace. Doesn't really tell you what the problem is. So they've made the assumption that whatever it is that they saw was a trip hazard in the workplace. So when you say what you see, they're going to say, hey, water hoses are lying on the floor. Another example is one of these longer ones. We have long lead time that has resulted in excessive inventory levels and cost, lack of business flexibility, and loss of operating profit. Is there a problem there? Well, yeah, there are 5 different problems in there. So let's peel something back and get something very specific. Okay, let's look at lead time. Our lead time is 77 days when our target is 40. The gap is 37 days. How about this one? This is a fun one. Our recycling bin in the kitchen only gets taken out to the city collection bin once every 4 weeks instead of every 2 weeks. Does that tell you what the problem is? No, what are you actually seeing? Well, you're seeing the recycle bin overflowing. But we're making assumptions, and we're blaming the fact that the city doesn't pick up as frequently rather than the way we're managing our own kitchen. So there's just a couple of short little examples. So I've got a few questions on this slide. I want you to be thinking about what questions you would ask your folks if they brought you these as problems, okay? So a little thought exercise. The DMT is the die maintenance tech. This particular problem was from a machine shop. So based on what we just talked about and saying what you see and avoiding the negative, what questions would you ask if somebody brought you this list? Simple, say what you see. If I see a pile of stuff someplace, say I see a pile of stuff someplace. Don't say anything about, well, the machine is taking too long to cycle. You don't know that. Tell me what you see first. Then we'll start figuring out why you're seeing that. Avoid assumptions, avoid negative language, and write everything down. Again, write everything down. Take a C4 card, write it down. Put it on the C4 worksheet someplace. Stuff it in that master presentation file. Whatever it takes. We just got to capture it and get going with it. Okay, so nice short video. Next up, we got a little problem breakdown, and I'm going to use world hunger as our example. So stay tuned.